Playtime is over. Get your Prepared Mind merchandise to show your support for the channel, stop censorship, and to tell YouTube they can smoke it. Get prepared now.
Hello everyone, your host John on the Prepared Mind channel. Welcome back over here to Patreon. I want to thank you guys for supporting me. I want to thank Paul for this delicious 18-year-old Glenlivet Scotch. Devastatingly delicious. I've been dealing with a cold. It was going around everywhere. So this is for medicinal purposes only. And before we get into the meat of the video, I want to say medicine is critical. Last few days I've been on Dayquil, NyQuil, taking lots of vitamin C, ascorbyl palmitate, which is an oil-based vitamin C. For 3 years I haven't had a cold, and one finally caught me, and I'm going to kick its ass. All right, now on to the video. Economics, financial talk, Wall Street is boring as hell. It's just boring. I mean, it's numbers, it's analyzing stuff. I know it's not exciting to talk about. I bore my son to tears listening to financial reports every day because everything is tied to it. Especially SHTF, especially shit hitting the fan. They're like gears that mesh together, shit and economics. Ever since man crawled out of his cave and said, let's start a city. I've got a great idea. Let's put a bunch of houses together and then we're going to trade things. Right? Ever since then we've had bartering. Ever since one guy had something another guy wanted, they figured out a way to do business with each other, and there's always that one guy who tries screwing the other guy out of his stuff. So through history, we've tried coming up with uniform ways to live together. Rules, laws, civilization. Always trying to stop that one guy from unrighteously screwing the other guy out of his stuff. And we've come down through history, trading clams, trading everything that we found valuable, until we got to the point where we had enough gold and silver. We thought, here's some money, you can rely on it, and you can count on it. Right? And it's just progressed from there. Today, even today, the people in charge of the world, the powers that be, let's just call them the Rothschilds. Because they, I think it was Nathan Rothschild, said, I care not for who makes the laws. Let me control the money, right? And I will make, the laws. I will control everything. And the problem I have with that is there's 10 different ways to quote it. Who knows which one was real, if any of them. But it's attributed to Rothschild. Why? Because he has all the money. And when you have all the money, you make all the rules. Right? And so this concept of the one guy or the one institution, the one idea, the Illuminati, right? If it's not one guy, it's this little group, the Illuminati. They want to control everything. And they've created a system. Not just they, but everybody. Me, you, everybody. We have a system. We go to work and we get paid in America dollars. And when you have excess dollars, you try and save them. And today, because of low interest rates, you try and invest them and make more, and everyone cooperates. We all work really hard in the system, and everything gets better. Amazing. But for some reason, things don't get better. We still end up in war. We still end up in financial doom and ruin. We still end up with plague. We still end up, through no fault of their own, meteorites, comets smashing into the earth. But apart from the natural disasters, which men can get away with, and they don't, get away from, they don't affect everybody. The thing that does affect everybody is our interconnected financial system. Boring as hell, fact of life. Back when the Holy Roman Empire, after the 1200s, they controlled everything. The Spanish, the Italians, the French, the Germans, right? And then there was the Protestant Reformation, an attempt to get away from that, and then you had the King of England, his thing. But there's always this money concept, this idea of paying taxes on property, taxes on making money, taxes for breathing. It's one more concept, one more idea of somebody believing that they are the dominant world power and that they have a right to tax you or kill you for it. And that equation, the taxing and killing, it's not just down on the street level, where if you don't pay your taxes to the county assessor, they lock your ass up and take your shit. It's not just down here at this level, it's up here at the state level. It's up here at the federal level. And if you think governments don't pay taxes, don't pay fee, don't pay royalties to royalties, the royals, you've got a misunderstanding of the true nature of this world. Right? Royalty claims that they own the world. Just because we're voting in elections doesn't mean they've lost this concept in their head. And people who run the banks, if you think they don't believe they're royalty, you've got something wrong with you. They also think they're special. They're better than. That they do control everything. If it wasn't for their banking system, you would be in the caves. Right? You would be cavemen. You're lowly. You're chattel. You're less than. That is the attitude that the major churches have. That is the attitude that the world superpowers have. That is the attitude that the mega bankers have. Is that all of us, you, me, my sons, your fathers, your mothers, your family, your neighbors, everyone in your city are nothing but dirt. If Hillary Clinton, even way back in the 90s, said, how are we supposed to rule these people? Right? If they're always arguing with us. That was a paraphrase, but she said that. How are we supposed to rule? R-U-L-E. As if she is royalty. She is a lower level puppet in comparison to the real power in this world, the dark side. And she still thinks she's better, that she's royalty and has the right to rule. Today, in 2018 at the very beginning, we have a crisis that's developing. We have an issue with our economies. They are not working. There's a problem with stocks. There's a problem with equities or junk bonds, high yield bonds, whatever you want to call them, blue chip stocks. There's a problem with government issued treasury bonds. For example, the Chinese have downgraded the United States' bonds. They've downgraded our economy, saying they don't think we're a safe risk. Not as safe as we were. They're saying we're on the decline. At the same time, their Petro Yuan is going to start. It's on the incline starting today, January 18th. There is now another way you can buy oil other than using the US dollar. It is using the Chinese yuan. There's a problem with our treasury bonds. They've been devalued. That means the US is now going to have to pay higher interest rates. That means those interest rates are going to be passed on to you. Because a rising tide of shit lifts all boats with it. And if you don't rise, it's going to bury you. There's a problem we have with debt. We have student loan debt. We have automobile debt. We have personal debt. We have mortgage debt. We have government debt. We have private sector debt. We have invisible debt that nobody knows a fucking thing about, but the government's spending the money anyways. Right? What, in other words, I don't want to leave that too ambiguous. What promises has our government made to other nations to which we are now their debtors, that we, meaning you and me and the average taxpayer, are not aware of? And I cite Harry Reid trying to deal with the Bundy Ranch in Nevada, trying to use bullshit Bureau of Land Management, BLM regulations to get them off of their property so that they could give that property to the Chinese for exploitation financially by the Chinese. That is a form of debt. A promise is a debt, and a debt note is a promissory note. See the connection, right? So debt, taxes are based on debt. If the government had no debt, we wouldn't need to pay taxes. Can you imagine how prosperous you would be if you didn't have to pay taxes? And all the stores you shopped at didn't charge you taxes. You'd have even more. You could save that money and you wouldn't have to pay taxes. You could invest it and not pay taxes. Imagine how fast your money would double again and again if you didn't have to pay 15, 20, 30, 40% taxes. I know on this channel we have people all across the tax spectrum. This comes down to the land, the soil itself, as I just noted with the discussion about China. It's completely and totally has everything to do with economics, with the financial system. But it's tied to the land. Who owns the land? Who has a right to use the land, to tax the land, right? Because the land is where true value comes out of, whether it's mining or agriculture. Somebody claims to own the land, that's the government, and the person who owns it in fee simple, meaning as a serf, a servant, pays taxes on the land. And anything the land produces, they pay taxes on. Property and land, those rights used to belong, believe it or not, to you and me, and the government could not tax you. It is unconstitutional to tax land or the income generated by it. Supreme Court cases back in the 1800s overturned in the FDR administration. Now, we've seen the mechanisms by which they control us. Taxation, regulation. But this really comes down to control and power. World domination. And how we exchange wealth. Wealth is gold, wealth is silver, wealth is land. Wealth is the ability to tax others because you're taking from them. It's a form of wealth. The power to tax, the founding fathers said, is the power to destroy. When they talked about destroying, they were talking about destroying people and destroying a nation, destroying freedom. But if you're on the other side, you're receiving that tax, you're receiving that power from someone else. It's the power to control. Today, in 2018, it comes down to, literally, the stock market. It comes down to this power and domination and control. It comes down to our economy. What is the land producing? If it doesn't produce, you can't pay the taxes, you owe the debt, the bonds are worthless. Who owns that debt? Who is the real world-dominating character? The bank doesn't want to own the land because the bank then has to work it. If the United States can't hold its position of power as the world reserve currency and economy, the superpower, then that baton is going to be handed to another nation. That is the reason I did this video. It took me 13 minutes and 59 seconds to get here. But that's the real question. The United States has demonstrated by hook or by crook that they cannot maintain their position in the world as the world superpower. That baton is being handed to China. Not to Europe, not to Russia, it's going to China. We're going to the Petro Yuan, and there's going to be a transition. That does not mean we're not going to have shit hits the fan. To the contrary, it means we're going to have shit hits the fan. We are now at a point where it can no longer be denied. We are past that point, and it probably came before 2008 at that collapse. We were past the point of no return, probably at the beginning of the Bush administration. And all action taken by the federal government since then has been in an attempt to stall the transition. And all that stalling is doing is making easier to hand the power, that baton, from the U.S. over to China. That doesn't mean that we won't end up in the same place we ended up back in the 1930s and 40s and back in the teens, the 19 teens. We ended up in a world war because these people who have power and control and the ability to tax, who benefit from the hard work of others, they don't want to give that power up. And we're seeing that struggle right now just between Trump and the Clinton cabal. We'll call it the Clinton cabal because they're the face of it right now. They're the ones on the hot seat, but it's everyone that's associated with them. They don't want to give up their control. They don't want to pay the fiddler. Right? When you and I incur a debt, that is, we take possession of something, we have to pay for it. And we're hoping that something has more value than what we have to pay. The Clintons have taken a lot of money out of the system. They've used a lot of power. They didn't produce. The system is failing. We're seeing that evidence within our economy itself, within the banking system. It's in death throes. And right now, you look at the stock market. It is at an all-time high. And it's sitting at that all-time high, and it's growing. And there is no doubt in my mind that this all-time high could continue for another year. Hell, it could continue for another 2 years. But it is a house of cards. It is a spider's web balloon that is full of hot air. And the government printing money and purchasing equities and purchasing assets and purchasing debt from others in order to sustain this life long after life has left the economy. It's just stalling the inevitable. One of the fears is that the more hot air you blow into this, the greater the collapse. That is, the harder we fall. And as a big guy, I know the bigger you are, the harder you do fall. And so for my part, I do all I can to not fall. This world around us, right? It's coming down. We're having a serious financial, economic, banking crisis. Just like we did back in 2008. And everyone is keeping it hush, hush, hush. Everyone, meaning everyone who knows. No one wants to come out and be the boy who cried wolf, like I'm doing right now. I'm saying, wolf, 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 we're fucked. No one wants to do that because then you get lampooned as Chicken Little, right? As Peter, who calls wolf all the time. And then when the wolf does show up, Peter goes, well, I told you, right? Unlike the story of the Chicken Little, right, who got hit on the head with the acorn. I'm not talking about acorns. And I'm talking about the crash of the economic system. In doing this video and in doing all my videos, I want to encourage you to continue to prep. I want to encourage you to continue to examine for yourselves and not take my word for it. Examine the bond market. Examine the US dollar. Don't just listen to talking heads that give us confirmation bias, yes or no. And from time to time I hear things I don't agree with and I go, is he telling the truth or is that his confirmation bias? Am I not liking what he says because it contradicts what I believe is happening? Should I consider everything he says one more time and then put it into the mix. I do all of those things for myself, and I recommend you do them for yourself. I've read my history. I've studied the law. Right? I've taken the time to learn how the stock market and investments work and how banking works, how governments finance themselves. And when you do that study, you become shocked. Shocked to understand that your banking cartel is a private banking system. You become shocked to understand that royalties are paid to other nations. You become shocked to understand that we, the people, who used to believe we were free, who used to be the sovereign, in whose name the government used to take action, we're now just chattel. We're slaves, and the government itself considers itself sovereign. Not just in relation to other sovereign nations, as the rules were originally created to do, but in relation to us. We are now human resources. Right? If the ground is a resource, if a mine is a resource, if a farm is a resource, as humans, we're just a resource to them. We're a source of something of value. And when the government identifies something it controls as something of value, it taxes it. As a human resource to the government, you are a taxable item. You are also a disposable item. You factor either into the debt or the assets. And all of this is accounted for in the stock market system. It's accounted for. Every hair on your head, every drop of blood is accounted for, and they will get their debt paid. Either through taxation or by taking possession of that debt. We are a debtor nation. Right. Well, as my voice goes to shit and I'm full of doom and gloom for you, I want to wish you a good day. It's Friday. Out on the West Coast, it's raining. And the world is a beautiful place. But what is happening on it is not. There is a struggle between the forces of good and the forces of evil. And right now, we are under the greatest threat we've ever been under. And I would dare say even greater than when the Soviet Union and the United States were nuclear-capable enemies that were poised to push the red launch button at any moment. I think we're in greater peril than that for a lot of different reasons. There's nothing you and I can do about it except be ready and tell everyone we care about, friends, family, and loved ones, get prepared now. Get prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine. Means of self-defense. Get prepared. Tell others to do the same. You don't have to sound the alarm. You don't have to be Paul Revere. You can just tell them, we're going to have hard financial times coming up. You need to make sure you have some cash set aside. You need to make sure you have some food set aside. Why don't you start looking into getting prepped? You don't have to scare them the way I'll scare the fuck out of everyone by explaining in minute detail, if given the time, every facet of their life that's going to come apart, right, and they're going to be up to their chin in shit. You don't have to do that. You just have to talk to them, let them know we've got some serious financial problems. Every time the Dow gets up like this, in relation to the rest of the world, to itself, to its own economic output, that is GDP, we have this collapse. There's a collapse that's upon us. Get ready. You guys, I want to thank you for supporting my efforts, for supporting my research, for supporting the research team at the preparedmind.club, and for supporting the administration here of the website. Think of the preparedmind.club as your store that was put together for you to help you shop for preps, to help you with blog, to help you with the live chat stream we have there, as well as Prepper Connect. That was all put together for you guys. And thankfully, it's right at that bubble where it pays for itself, and that is terrific. That's your resource. Use it. And I want to thank you for making my efforts that I do on here. I'm grateful that they are appreciated. So you guys, hopefully I don't lose my voice altogether. I'm going to do all I can to avoid that. So I'm going to cut this video right here. Semper Fi, chance favors the prepared mind, is yours. Godspeed to y'all. Stay frosty. Look what's going on. Get prepped.